All right.
Content Bacon.
Is it E for the peer group representation would be, or
EO
model?
is the peer group. It's
Yeah,
entrepreneurs organization.
We're on.
Oh, yeah. So good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for some of you. Just depends on where you're located in the country. And thanks for joining us. Have Jordan and Mark. My name is Eric. We're with Journey Alliance. And we are going to be kicking off talking about peer groups, peer advisory groups today. I also have Tina, Sue, Wendy, and Phyllis with me. And let's be honest, you're here to actually hear from them, not from me. And wanted to give each of them an opportunity just to introduce themselves before we get kicked off. Tina, let's go ahead and start with you if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Tina Corner-Stoltz, and I am the founder of LX Council, which is Leader Exchange Council. So it's a peer advisory group / mastermind group. And I was also a former the Alternative Board franchisee as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tina. And Sue, how about you?
Delighted to be with you all today. My name is Sue Tinish. I am a Vistage Chair, as we're called, or a facilitator, and I run 2 Vistage groups in the Chicagoland area. One for CEOs, senior business leaders, and the other for trusted advisors. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sue. And Wendy.
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Wendy Lieber. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Content Bacon. And as such, I am a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, which is a global organization. And I'm based in Fort Lauderdale normally, but I happen to be in New York today. So I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. And last, certainly not least, Phyllis.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be here today. Phyllis Nagres. I am a C12 chair here in Central Texas, and I lead a CEO forum and a key players forum here in Central Texas, still building and growing the practice.
Thanks a lot, Phyllis.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're joining today, if you're watching this now, or maybe if you're watching or listening to this later on as an audience member, you might know a little bit about me. My name is Eric, like I mentioned earlier on, and Jordan and Mark as well as part of Journey Alliance. And we often talk about just the value or the power of peer advisory groups. Each person represents a very unique or different model in this, and you'll even hear them use different terms, maybe even different than peer advisory group. You heard mastermind as well. Near and dear for me as a business owner, completely changed the course of my life in terms of how I led and how I operated my business, having a group of people around me, of other business owners that were around me that had different experiences and had some wisdom that they could share with me, and frankly, just call me out sometimes in areas that I needed to be called out as well. So that's a little bit about my personal experience in the mix of this. But if you're here today, you're potentially asking yourself the question of why in the world would I join one of these peer advisory groups, or you're just trying to get more information about what the different options are. You may even be part of a particular peer advisory model right now and just curious what else is out there as well. And so I'm going to do my best just to facilitate the conversation between Phyllis, Tina, Sue, and Wendy and try to answer these questions. But really what's going to be helpful from you is just go ahead and push any questions or even comments that you have in the chat as we go. Jordan's behind the scenes, and she's going to try to take the questions or maybe even the comments that she feels are most relevant for the overall group, or maybe the questions for each panel member, and she'll push them on the screen as we go. And I'll go ahead and ask the panel members the questions that you're asking. We do have some questions that were asked ahead of time that we're going to go ahead and use as we go along as well. So we'll do our best to ask the questions that maybe you're thinking of as well. So at any point, if any of your questions aren't answered, please don't think all is lost. It's going to be all right. We're asking each one of these panel members to go back through after this is complete. It may not be today. It may just be through the course of next week, to go back through the comment trail that's going to show up on LinkedIn that'll have your comments and your questions, and they'll have the opportunity to respond to those as well. So if we don't get to all the questions today, they can go back through the comment trail and respond to those as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You're probably tired of hearing me talk at this point. Tina, if you don't mind, I'm going to just jump off with you. I'm going to ask the same question of all the panel members as we go right now, though. And the first question is, if I'm a business owner or a business leader, why in the world would I join a peer advisory group or a mastermind group?
Thanks, Eric. So I have been in this industry since '05, and the reasons, I believe, have not changed since then. There are so many reasons that I know my fellow colleagues on the call will share. I will highlight just a few. One, there's empirical data, okay, on why you should join. You can look this up, but I will tell you that what we also see with a lot of our members across the country is that, one, there was a study put out by the American Society of Training and Development that said when you have accountability, reaching for your goals, you will be 65% to 95% more successful. So the bottom line is we also see that our members, when they are involved in the groups, that we will probably talk about this later, but we find that particularly their companies are 15% more valuable, okay, have more value driven than their competitors. So there are hard data rules as far as outcomes as to why. The flip side of it is I will quote a member, Paul Grun, and Paul said, if as a leader, you do not take time out to be strategic and what you've heard many times, work on your business, then you have no business running your business as a leader. And to get to that next level, that is what it will require, is a dream team that you have, i.e. a group that's a right fit for you to help you get there. So I'll pass it, Eric, because I know everybody else has so many other things to say about it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that last part of what you said really cuts to the core for leaders and for owners to feel that it's important enough to take the time to work on the business. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
Phyllis, what do you say? I mean, why in the world would someone take the time to invest in a peer advisory group model?
That what Tina brought up is absolutely true. Taking time away to work on the business means you have to carve it out of your day. You have to carve out that time. And it's so much more valuable to do that with a peer group and proven that works so well. I see people that need this, that just struggle with the concept of taking a day away. And it hurts. It hurts my heart when I see that, because I know that is exactly what they need. The fact that they are so busy means they are overcommitting, and they need a group of accountable people to help them spend time on the right things and not spend time on the things that are filling up their days.
Yeah, so you see that sign that busyness and overcommitment is actually the very reason why an owner or a leader should be joining a group, which the math doesn't seem to make sense sometimes. I don't have time, so I should make the time.
Yep, it's very true.
That's great, thank you. Sue, what do you say in terms of why somebody would join a peer advisory group?
One of the value propositions of Vistage is encompassed in this acronym MAGIC, and it touches on a little bit what we've already talked about, but the M stands for making better decisions. And so it's that prioritizing and that ability to work on the business instead of just in the business. The A is the accountability, the first point that we talked about. The G is just that growth. And I think you see growth both in terms of personally, potentially your relationships in the community, as well as your familial relationships, and growth in your company. As we alluded to, there's typically, compared to your peers, you'll definitely see revenue change and more valuation in your business. So that's the G. The I is the isolation. So often you just don't have anybody that you can always turn to. And this peer group provides that support, that emotional support and that intellectual support to grapple with the challenge that you have. And then the C, the last letter in MAGIC, stands for just that change management, which is so critical in today's environment. So MAGIC is what I like to bring to my members through my work.
Yeah, it's good, Sue. In the isolation, I can just say from personal experience that was the thing that really drew me in when I first got involved in being part of a peer advisory group. I think as owners and as leaders, we may have plenty of great people around us, but they're not always the people that we need to be working on the business with, or frankly, we just might not be vulnerable enough to share some of the things that we might get to share through time with some of our groups.
Yeah, great point, Eric.
Thanks, Sue, for that. Wendy, now EO is even, I think, a different model compared to some of the others. So definitely interested. Are any differences, or does this all seem to sound the same as to why somebody would join a group like EO?
Yeah, I think everyone really covered the highlights. I think for me, as a member, and why I joined is I really wanted to level up my business, level up my leadership, and I find it just incredibly inspiring and fun to be around other successful entrepreneurs. And I think the vulnerability piece is really important because as entrepreneurs, there's like some funny memes you see out there, like a day in the life of an entrepreneur, and it's like, highs and lows, and all throughout the day, right? You can start out great, at some point in the in the day, think you're going out of business and end up, thinking you're going to buy another business. It's a little crazy, and there's very few people that can relate to that. And so being able to share experiences, the wins, the losses with other like-minded entrepreneurs can just feel, at least for me, very fulfilling and inspiring. So I think that isolation, vulnerability piece, and then you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, whatever that quote is. And so I'm very picky with my time, and I choose to spend it with like-minded people who are out there, up for playing a big game, making an impact and in their communities. And so, organizations like EO and the ones represented here, I think, give you access to those type of individuals.
Yeah, that's a great picture, I think, that you've painted, even in the beginning of that entrepreneurial and business owner journey, if you will, that those ups and downs, but being to have a group that's around you. I got the feeling almost of camaraderie, of maybe the right groups really surrounding each other as they're navigating all of that together. Wendy, I'm actually going to ask you the next question, but before I do that, I just want to, because I know some people may be joining the event just now, just to give you indication of where we need your help. We're here today for each of you that are in the audience. If you're a business owner, a business leader, and you're really trying to figure out what the heck this peer advisory type model is, and each person represents a different brand here with a different model. So if you're in the audience and you have questions, or even as you hear everybody talking and discussing this, you have comments to make, please go ahead and push those into the chat. Jordan Roberts with Journey Alliance, she's the one that frankly put all this together, by the way. So Jordan, thank you for all this, but she's behind the scenes, and she's going to take any of your comments or questions, and she'll go ahead and move those on screen for us as we go. Anyhow, so push them into the chat for us as we go. Wendy, what makes your group different from other options?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with all the nuances of the other groups. I think one of the main differences is EO is for entrepreneurial founders, co-founders. So it is all entrepreneurs. I know a lot of peer-to-peer groups, also like top leadership, which is great, but EO is not that. So that's one of the main differences. It's also a global organization. So one of the benefits is whenever I travel, wherever I travel, I can always connect with other EOers throughout the world, which is an extreme benefit for a lot of different reasons. So those are probably, in terms of structure, there's probably a lot of similarities. EO is constantly evolving, and we can talk more about that when we get into kind of the nuances. But I would imagine those are probably two of the main differences, at least that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and on the the global, that one makes sense, clear to understand. When you say entrepreneurial, what size companies do you generally see?
Yeah, so there is criteria in order to qualify, and overall, as a global organization, you have to have revenue of 1 million or above. Be a founder or co-founder. Certain chapters have additional criteria beyond that. So, for instance, our South Florida chapter, because we've gotten so large over the past couple of years, we just raised the standards. So now you have to be at 2 million or above. So, but that's the baseline is typically a million or above in revenue.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, and something, Wendy, you called out as I move on, Phyllis, to you, is you may not be fully aware of what each group has to offer. So while I'm asking the question, Phyllis, what makes your group different from other options? I think maybe another way I could have asked it is, what do you feel makes your particular group model special? What makes it unique?
Thanks. And I was a member of C12 before I became a chair. So I was a member for about 7 years, and it was life-changing for me. So I, believe very strongly in it. And I think the models are all very similar because there's kind of that proven formula of bringing people together in a forum, and then you have your one-on-one time with them to keep them connected and help build and grow them. And so those are the same, that part's the same. C12 is specifically for Christian CEOs and business owners. For me, where my faith walk and my journey was at the point that I took on my last role, I needed a group of peers that were coming at this from the same place and that were really looking at their work from an eternal perspective. I believe very much that wherever you're at, that's your calling. And I feel, very called to do this, just like I've felt called to do CEO jobs. And how do we live that out? How do we do that well? And how do we look at it when we look at our life in balance? Is it totally in balance? Is our spiritual walk, is our care for our family just as important to us as running the business? So we'd like to say we like to build great businesses for a greater purpose, but in the end, if we have a great business that's hitting all the numbers and everything else falls apart, we lose our kids, we lose our family, that's not a success. And so we are very intentional about bringing your whole self to the meeting.
Got it. So it sounds like from your perspective, there are going to be a lot of similarities with other groups in that you're essentially solving the same need in terms of having that group. The difference from what you're saying with C12 is there's this faith-based component. And you mentioned this whole self aspect as well. You mentioned family. So I know if someone's in the audience now from a business perspective and they've never been exposed to a peer advisory group model, they might be thinking to themselves, what the heck does my family have to do with this? But at the same time, you're saying it has a whole lot to do with it, and that C12's model introduces this whole person, if you will.
That's exactly right.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I guess I'm going to jump questions on this one just to mix it up a little bit. And one of the things I want to ask each of you, though, I want to kind of go around on all this. Phyllis, I'll start with you. Is what do you look for within a group member? What is it that you're looking for?
In addition to meeting those minimum criteria, we recommend 1 to 2 million in income as the entry level and 10 or more employees. We spend an awful lot of time talking about employees. This really isn't a great place for a solo entrepreneur. But I'm looking for someone who is willing to be vulnerable, who's honest with me as we're meeting, who's willing to go there and lay things on the table that they're dealing with that are difficult. What I don't want to have in the room is somebody who is unwilling to share what's going on in their life, unwilling to share their fears. We all have them, but they're not going to be a great member, and that's willing to make the commitment to the other members, to be there for them, to show up for them, to do this and do this well. I think if they go in with the right commitment, they make an excellent member.
Thanks for that. So I hear vulnerability and commitment. Those two things seem to be pretty important, aside from minimum requirements.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Tina, same question for you. When you all are sizing up, if someone's the right fit, what are you looking for?
We, first of all, so everyone's kind of aware, is not only have I run groups, but what I really do is teach others how to run them. And one of the differences of what do you look for in a member is so many of our licensed partners have niche groups in addition to traditional groups. They could be virtual, they could be online, they could be a hybrid. So that all takes into consideration like what you look for.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that we talk about how you match members so that they are truly in the right fit group for them is less about actual revenue and number of employees. It's really about sophistication level and experience. So where have they been and where are they going? Because you could have someone that maybe is, let's say, less than $1 million revenue, but they're on their third company.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to be that $1 million less company for long, but they bring so much experience to the table. And so it's really important of kind of that matching. And with all of the other, so what does that mean? That means that what do you look for in a member are those characteristics that they want to learn, that they have learned. They want to grow. They're going to be open to feedback. They're going to be able to listen. They're not there to network. Okay. They're there for the right reasons. And they're also there for the long run. This is not something you participate in and hope in 90 days, there's all the answers and then you leave. When you think about joining a peer group, you should think of it as if you were buying a horse or a dog. It's a lifetime commitment because you're going to notice your journey completely progressing month over month that you participate, and that you're going to want to be there. It's going to become a fabric of your strategy in your business. It's something that is a line item in your budget because it's something that is not negotiable and you're going to be involved in. And when you're in the right group, that it's just as much as what do we look for in a member, but it's also what the members are looking for. And you make that match like you're a recruiter as well.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think the idea that you hit on, which is you're looking for, I heard the word commitment earlier, but you're talking about even duration. It's not just a commitment. Let me see how this works for the next 90 days. Is can someone envision this being part of what I'm doing in business for an extended period of time, for potentially for the entire course of me owning and operating this business, that it's part of my support system.
Correct. Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a challenging one. If you're a business owner or a leader right now listening to this and you're just now trying to figure out, does this peer advisory thing fit? And then all of a sudden you just heard, well, wait a second, I'm committing long-term to this whole entire thing. But I think there's so much integrity in what Tina just said, because the reality is peer advisory groups, my experience at least, they're not necessarily short-term fix. Granted, I'm sure everybody here can share stories of how sometimes even the first group or two really did have that drastic impact. But it's not about the short-term change as much as the long-term path that a business owner has. So I appreciate you being willing to take that risk and say, hey, this really is a long-term commitment that somebody would say, I want to be involved and have this type of a support system.
Yes, Eric, if I can say just one quick thing about that is think of it as a public company has their board of directors that never goes away. It's always there. They don't have an option. This is like that for you, though you're private, right? Privately held. And the other thing is it takes time for people to know each other. So when you're in your group, the more they really get to know you, the more they're going to be able to help you and give you the most appropriate insights. And so that's where that duration really starts to pay off the longer that you're with that same group, because it's invaluable the blind spots they'll see for you.
Yeah, that's great. Wendy, similar question. I mean, when looking for EO members, what is it? And you mentioned some criteria initially. What else is going to make up a good EO member?
Yeah, again, I think others highlighted it. I think we have a carry your own bags is one of the criteria we look for. And what we mean by that is you don't just kind of join EO and then, all right, what's EO going to do for me? Or if you have a complaint, you're kind of like looking for someone out there to solve it. So having like that mentality where you carry your own bags, you participate is certainly something we look for. The vulnerability piece, we call it sharing the 5%, because that's really where all the magic happens. And not just 5% like the bad stuff. I mean, there certainly is that, but it's also the good stuff, because sometimes it's hard to want to share all your wins and successes with, friends who may not be experiencing that. So being willing to share the 5%, thirst for learning is another. There is no kind of top to the mountain, right? There's always the next level. And as your journey, as an entrepreneur may evolve or change, being able to participate in EO at different levels, it may become more social for you because you've sold your company, but you still want to participate, give back, experience share, but you want to spend more time going on experiences. So that commitment piece is definitely important, so that it's, you're getting so much from the organization, but because you're giving so much to it.
Yeah, that's great. The carry your own bag, I really like that term, but that concept of what that brings to mind as well, in terms of the level of commitment that an owner or a leader needs to make to the group, but really to themselves as they participate. And the other thing that you mentioned, which I thought was really great, is that learning aspect of it, is that a business owner or leader should really approach, if I'm hearing you right, and approach a group with the understanding it's continuous learning. It's
right.
Never a matter of arriving. It's a matter of continuously learning with this group, part of their support.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So same question, just to round us out. What are you looking for in a member?
So I agree really with most of the panelists that there are so many important demographics and psychographic information and qualifying criteria. But the other thing that I would just add is, when I'm thinking about my group, I also think about it as really a portfolio of people and companies. So I might be looking for a specific voice or experience or expertise, and also an industry. Specifically, think about how different industries are leading or lagging indicators of the economy. So to have somebody in the group that can say, for example, like in the trucking industry, that's a seat I'm hoping to fill soon. To have somebody in the trucking industry, usually that, or 3PL, that's usually a leading indicator of where the economy is going. To have somebody in the group that has that insight ahead of other industries really is helpful to the entire group, to just being more aware of what's happening in the broader economy. So just a different perspective.
Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of how you look to bring different industries together and how those industries may actually inform each other. So from a strategic perspective, just having those different voices in the room, somewhat by design, if you will, might actually help each other be able to shape what they're working on. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I appreciate all of you and the feedback that you gave on that. Just want to do another call out. I know Jordan's trying to prompt, everybody in the audience to go ahead and ask questions and make comments. And I realize if you're a business owner jumping into this, I would say there's a pretty high chance you're in that group that's less likely to maybe push a comment into an environment like this. But each individual that's here today on this panel is actually here for you. So while we have some questions that we have in advance to go ahead and continue asking, the best questions are going to come from everybody that's in the audience, because you're probably thinking about things that we didn't think about, and we love to be able to answer those for you. Let me go ahead and just jump into another question that I have, and this is one that I think often people are thinking, but maybe feel it's inappropriate to ask. So I'll be the person that just goes ahead and asks the question. How much does this cost? And someone's going to be looking to join a group. What are they going to be spending to be part of this group? And Let's just go ahead and, Sue, since you're still on, if you don't mind taking the lead, and then we'll go around because I'm sure everybody is curious about what this cost is going to be like.
Certainly. So the first thing I would say is that we like to think of it not as a cost, but an investment. And that might seem like I'm wordsmithing, but really think about it. A cost is what you need to put into your business today to keep it running. An investment is what you're going to choose to spend your money and your resources on for the future. And so we like to think of it at Vistage as really an investment. And Vistage has a variety of groups. So we have groups for chief executive groups. We have key groups. We have small business groups. We have groups that also help you build out your leadership team. So advancing leaders, emerging leaders, and also Vistage Inside kind of organizations. And so in general, the investment starts, of course, with your time, which is very precious. But in general, our costs range from our investments range from about $1,700 a month down to about maybe $500, depending on the kind of group that you're going to be involved in. So that's the investment in Vistage, your time, and then those financial investments.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And so you have a range. It sounds like, is it different depending on the type of group? That range just tries to meet the investment that would match up with that type of group then?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then it's a monthly fee. That's 12 months, just recurring as part of the group.
Yeah, just it's a membership. It can be billed out monthly or annually, however you want. But really, as I think Tina said, it's just nice to think about it as a line item really in your training and development budget, and it's an investment in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Wendy, same question for you.
Yep.
What are the costs or investments involved for EO?
Yeah, so there are global dues and then local chapter dues, and so it averages around 5,000 per year, paid annually, and then there are potentially additional costs in your forum, for whatever expenses you may incur as a forum. So at least once a year, my forum takes a yearly retreat. And so depending on where we decide to go, like we went to Puerto Rico last year, sometimes it just depends. So as a forum, you decide that, but the dues for chapter and global average around 5,000 a year.
Okay. And then you mentioned this retreat. Is that something that you strongly suggest? Is that a requirement? I mean, what does that look like for someone joining?
Yeah. So in addition to what what global offers, what the chapter offers, which is lots of benefits, lots of learning events, social events that you can participate as part of your dues, you're put into a forum, which is usually 6 to 8 people. It's peer run, so a moderator is selected, and you get training for that, which is amazing because then you can use that in your business to run really effective meetings. And then as a forum, we're meeting monthly, usually for at least a 4-hour block with a meal, sometimes after, before, sometimes during. And then at least once a year, we do a retreat. And so it is required in our forum. Every forum has its own bylaws and constitution. So depending on your forum, but for the most part, it's best practices that you go on a yearly retreat and then you spend a little bit more time with everyone. When you travel with your group, it just creates more bonding, more vulnerability, more experiences. So, and then, excuse me, my forum, we also do mini retreats throughout the year. So we sometimes will take a day, sometimes we'll do an overnight somewhere local, but that's all based on our constitution and what we decide as a group we want to do and invest in.
I see. So it sounds like there's involvement from the group to decide what those retreats or events might look like.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Tina, so similar question for you as it relates to costs, what a business owner or leader should expect to invest in joining a group.
We are a little different. in that with our program, our licensed, we call them licensed partners, but they're moderators of the groups. They make the decision on what they're going to charge. So why? It's because if they do a niche group or based on their market. So some markets, like a small market, can't handle like what, a higher up end price. And so it has to get adjusted per the market and also adjusted for the type of group. So what do I mean by that? There could be virtual groups. They could be a hybrid group. There could be an in-person group. The majority of all of the time commitment is really either a half a day meeting, or sometimes virtual will be like 3 hours, but most in person are 4-hour meetings. And with that, you could see a range that comes from anywhere from $400 a month if it's like a virtual in a smaller market even, or if it's in person in a smaller market, all the way up to $1,000 a month. And it's typically monthly. Some offer a discount if paid quarterly or annual. And then there's also usually a one-time fee. And that one time would include onboarding, some maybe tools and resources with that. And it would also include the, some other whatever kind of package and the opportunity to make sure that that member is absolutely prepared for their member experience. And that's all roped in. And that's why there's sometimes a one time. Much like you've heard about retreats, that's usually, it's very specific to the group and is usually an additional cost that the group decides on. So it's not dictated by any means. And so that's usually about it's a range. I know that may not be helpful to everybody out there, but it really is about what you're specifically looking for as an owner running a business and finding that match. But
yeah. And I appreciate you even gave us some indication dollar-wise when you talked about the range. But within LX Council, what you're saying, if I understand right, is it's variable, really just based off of probably the market, if you will. And it could be virtual or it could be local. It could be geared towards a particular niche or type of group or another. And it's really left in the hands of the person that's shaping that group to try to determine what the appropriate fee would be for the people that they're trying to support.
Correct.
Okay, great. No, thank you for sharing that. Phyllis, and admittedly, I was supposed to be keeping track as to who I asked this question. Phyllis, same question for you. I believe I haven't asked you yet.
Yeah. So very similar. There's different prices depending on the different groups. C12 is an international organization, so the price for a group in Brazil or Taiwan or South Africa or some of the other locations is not going to be the same as it is here in the U.S. But typically the CEO forum is about $1,500 a month, and the key player group, which should be for maybe the next level leaders in the organization, is $595 a month. There's discounts, there's some market adjustments in some places, and so that kind of gives you a good idea. Though there's also a sign-up fee, much like the others. There's a fee up front to help pay for getting you onboarded, getting your materials to you. C12 is a full day, once a month, typically breakfast and lunch provided, and the one-on-one hour coaching that comes in between sessions. And so that is a body of work and activity for that member to be engaged in that they're paying for. And in addition, the key players have a similar experience. And I was so blessed to be able not only to participate in C12, but by the time I left the organization I was in, I had 4 people in key players. And as other people have spoken, just the leadership development, the ability to get everyone in the organization on the same page and to move us forward, it was amazing. So I really do highly value. I think the key players are so much fun because they're so eager and ready to learn and be a part of the team. And it's such a great way to show appreciation.
Thanks, and I appreciate that. And so it sounds like there's the opportunity for the owners, and you just mentioned this key players as well, and then fees that may be adjusted just based off that.
Mhm.
You mentioned something though that made me think of another question, and that's what happens between the groups. And so,
Mhm.
you have a group that meets on a given month, and then you come back
Mhm.
a next month, or maybe there's some type of event. But is there anything that and I know there's different terms for this depending on the group, the chair, the facilitator, the moderator, or maybe something that I'm missing. Is there anything that individual is doing in between groups to support the group members? And I'll start with you since you brought it up. I'm curious to hear separate or maybe more specific what you just called out.
I think we would all share this, but there's a lot that goes on in between meetings. There's a lot of time spent preparing for the meetings and getting those presentations ready. The one-on-one coaching sessions with each of the people in the room to give them that special confidential space to make sure they're moving forward on their goals and objectives, and that they have a place to sound off in between meetings is so helpful. We have a prayer group as well. So if things are going on in their lives that just go crazy, texts and messages will go out to get people to surround them and support them, which has been super helpful. We do a different core business presentation every month. And so there's a 360 review. So everyone once a year goes through this additional exercise, which is presenting on the company, getting those 360 interviews. Those are things people would normally pay someone to do for them. And we're, offering that as part of the whole package, that they get that kind of feedback from their team as to how they're doing as a leader. So, and then other retreats and things that we'll offer. We have some that are at no cost and some that are sponsored, and then some that are a small additional charge.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's plenty of support behind the scenes, but then there's also opportunities to interact as needed as well.
Mm-hmm.
So similar question, Phyllis, I guess just jumping over, Sue, jumping over, same question for you, I guess. What happens between groups?
Yes, so similar to C12, as a Vistage leader, I will meet individually for up to 2 hours for one-on-one coaching with my members. And then within the larger Vistage organization, there'll be other opportunities. We have face-to-face events. So like, for example, right now, our members are getting geared up to have a virtual event with Marcus Buckingham at the beginning of March, and we'll have a little guest version of that. And Vistage, like some of the other organizations, is global. So we have 45,000 people across the world that belong to Vistage. And so what that also allows us to do is have very specific virtual groups that might do a meetup, but also you can engage with those groups through the networks. So there's industry networks like manufacturing, hospitality, healthcare. There's also specific like affiliate, we call them affiliate groups. So there's a deal network, a family business network, women in leadership, talent. So those networks are places to post questions, to interact with people, as well as your industry group. And then we'll have specific resource centers. So, no surprise, we have an AI resource center these days. Inflation, talent management. So those centers are places that you can mingle virtually with people across the globe and have your questions answered. So events, and I'd say the networks, and then these more casual meetups, as well as the coaching, are the way that people interact most frequently in Vistage.
That's great. So it sounds like it's almost there's a broader network that's created with Vistage that's broader or bigger than the group itself. And that's kind of the broad part. And then the narrow part is that individual coaching that takes place within Vistage as well.
Exactly. As well as your most groups are geographic, not exclusively, but most groups meet face-to-face and are geographic. So from that, you can expand your reach through Vistage, just as you said, Eric.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, Wendy, you led into this with some of the different experiences that are really part of, it sounds like part of EO. Anything else that happens between those gatherings specific to EO? Oh, Wendy, you with me? anything you're aware of that's happening between any of the meetings for EO or between any
Yeah,
of
very
the
similar to Vistage. At the chapter level, there's all kinds of events going on, either a social event or a learning event or both. At the Yep, is it not? Is my
I'm with you.
audio
I think it was
bad?
just a little bit of
Is it
lag.
breaking up?
You got it.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Is my audio okay? Or
Yep.
no? You're not hearing me?
Yep.
Nope.
Hey, Wendy, I'm just going to push you into the background now. Tina, same,
Mhm.
sorry about that. Tina,
Hello.
same question for you. What happens between the different sessions?
Okay.
Okay. There is a big focus first on the group bonding. So that can happen much like you heard. It could be socials, it can be one-on-ones where the moderator is connecting a member to another member, encouraging members to connect. Also outside of the meeting, it could be maybe one member wants to know more about this other member's, situation. It can help them. And so they carry that further in a one-on-one conversation. So a lot of around the support of that existing group that continues their experience beyond the meeting, from a way of leveling up. And then we actually do not put as part of the experience coaching in between. There is what we call a quarterly achievement session. It's a true planning session on how the last 90 days have gone with their experience in the group and then the future 90 days. So they're really looking forward out. So there will be like preparation for that. Like they do an annual report on their business. We call it My Perspective Report. And also making sure they're bringing the best, most important challenges, opportunities, problems, and ideas to the meeting that are coming up. So there's that aspect. And it really is the moderator. What I'm going to put out there is kind of a resource connector, meaning really connecting. What does that member need? It could be that there are webinars, continuous learning for the members. There are resources. We have a whole library they have access, and so they have all of that if there's something specific that they're looking for as well. So that's what happens.
Yeah. So you mentioned, forgive me if I get it wrong, quarterly achievement session. Quarterly,
Mhm.
is that the right
Yes.
term?
Yes.
So is that a picture of the business owner or leader? They're doing some pre-work on their own based off what you described, and then they're meeting with, is it a chair, facilitator? What's the term in your
They
environment
are
again?
the moderator.
Okay.
Yes.
Moderator. So they meet individually with the moderator, and that
We do.
moderator works with them through that,
Yes.
and then that on a quarter by quarter basis as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's definitely interesting. It's interesting to hear so much commonality in the groups, but also then just the uniqueness that comes from each one of these groups as well. I am doing a time check right now. I know we're getting close to about 10 minutes. And for anybody that is listening or watching, or anybody that might be listening or watching the recording, I appreciate you've taken the time. Hopefully this has given you some indication as to what a peer advisory group, a mastermind group, or a similar model is really all about. What I want to do, though, is just go around the room and give each of you the opportunity just to close this out. Tell us a little bit more about the group, any other closing remarks that you think would be valuable for the business owners or leaders, and anything else, even just about yourself, that you think might be pertinent to share as well. Tina, since you're on screen, let's go ahead and start with you, and we'll just go from there.
Sure. I think what I would want to impart on you is you can go to my website and get a free download of an ebook. It's agnostic. And the ebook is all about, I wrote this a long time ago, about why even join a peer group. So it's all about like why we've been on this call. And it gives you all of these things to think about. So you choose the right group for you. So I would encourage you to, look at multiple, because you'll learn about what's important to you, and who else is in the group matters, and your chair, moderator, forum leader, etc. matters, and their experience, how they choose, how they put their groups together, all of that matters, and you will find your home. Because one of the number one reasons we find that a member will leave their group is the moderator. The moderator's not running the meeting correctly. They haven't assembled, everybody around the table correctly, and it won't fit your needs, and therefore you'll leave. You'll stay because of who's at the table, okay? But it'll be evident if your moderator is not where they need to be. And that's, we offer a certification. All of our moderators go through extensive training and practice to be really good at this. And this, as you all might be aware, it may look effortless when you're in a meeting that moderator or chair, and you can see we're all laughing. It is not effortless. There is an immense level of skill and characteristics that are required for someone to successfully do this. And that's who you're looking for, because you're spending valuable money and time, and you want to be with the best. And so I just encourage you to really search that out, and just don't look at this and go, I hope they accept me as a member. No, you are interviewing them just as much.
Yeah, Tina, I really appreciate your insight into that for an owner or leader to recognize that it's a two-sided interview, but more important for them, they're going to invest their time and money, that they should really be prudent. Your book is a great reference. I'm aware of that myself even. Another thing too, so Jordan Roberts, I mentioned earlier, she's going to be sending out for everybody that's signed up for this event. I'm sure she'll end up pushing it on LinkedIn. There really are, just through the research that she did on this topic, there are some great questions she's come up with, frankly, probably from each of you and all the others that she spoke with, that as an owner or leader, you should be asking before you join the group. So just look for that, everybody that's in the audience, in the report, because it's a really helpful guide to make sure you're asking the right questions. And it's not so much a matter of a right or wrong group. It's a right or wrong group for you. What's the right fit for you? And as you heard from each person on the panel, they're looking for something very specific with different members. And as an owner or leader, you should be doing the same too, so that long-term commitment and that camaraderie does actually come to life. So Sue, same thing for you. If you just want to go ahead and give us any final thoughts, any additional contact information, words of wisdom, anything along those lines.
So I guess I would say that for me, diversity is really what jazzes me when I'm leading my group. What I enjoy so much is the many faces and the many kinds of businesses in the room. So that is really critical. And while you want to have diversity, I also have to make sure there's no conflicts. We don't want vendors or customers or competitors in the room. So that's just another thing to make sure that you think about as you're looking at a group. I think that Tina's advice was spot on. And I think there's typically several opportunities. To me, when you're exploring joining a peer group, it's really is that exploration. And I run that process really in multiple stages, like 3 or 4 steps. And along the way, it's always just about making sure that fit is there. And it is a two-way street, as you alluded to. And it's, what am I going to do for you? But what also are you going to bring into the group? And so when you have that kind of membership discussion and that selection process, and it's done over a course of events and meetings, I think then you can develop a little more comfort level about the fact that you're going to be joining the right group and engaging with the right moderator or chair.
Yeah, it's great. And so it sounds like from your perspective too, it's just maintaining that selectivity that everybody kind of enters into the group environment, knowing for the most part what they're getting themselves into. Of course, once they peel back the layers, they'll learn more and more, but at least they have a level of comfort that they've chosen the right group to be part of.
Right. And, while I'm based in Chicago, my group is Chicago. These are all abstract photos of Chicago skyscrapers. And if you look closely, I'm happy to connect people with other resources, whether it's, across the world or in the United States, if you're interested in talking further about Vistage. So just DM me on LinkedIn, or my contact information is also in my profile. And only one Sue Tinish in the United States, so I'm easy to find.
Oh, that's amazing.
Very few people could say something like that. Thank you. Wendy, how about you? Any just closing remarks, contact information, anything else that you'd like to share?
Yeah, of course, if anyone's interested in learning more about EO, feel free to reach out to me. I mean, I think for me, it's really about relationships and connections that you can build that not only you can give to, but there isn't anything that I'm going to encounter in my business or personal life that I don't have a network that I can reach out and get experience shares about it, whether it's in my forum, whether it's in my chapter, or whether it's globally. So for me, it's just, that adage, it can be lonely at the top. With an organization like EO or the ones all here, I don't really ever feel that. And because I've just got such an incredible network of amazing human beings, entrepreneurs who inspire me to always want to be at the next level. So I think if you're a business leader, an entrepreneur, an aspiring entrepreneur, I think having a group like EO or one of the ones represented, it's such an asset, and it just makes me a better leader. It makes me a better human being, really. And so I'm just so grateful that I found this organization, because it just fulfills me on so many levels. So if anyone is interested in learning more, I'm happy to share more of my experiences.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Wendy. And Phyllis, so any just closing remarks, contact information, anything else you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So definitely on LinkedIn, can PM me there as well. And I, to that point, I'd be happy to match up with another organization if it's in another community across the U.S. I'm in Austin, Texas, but we've got them around the world. I think that people, as they enter this space, they really want they want to have those relationships. They want to have that network of people supporting them. Leadership is lonely, as it was said. And so knowing that, come into the space, ask hard questions, be vulnerable with the interviewer that you're talking to, and make sure that this is the thing for you. I would rather get to a no quickly than have someone tell me, maybe get back with me in a few months, what have you. It's like, if this is not for you, it's okay. We've just made a new friend. Exploring these kinds of groups is a really smart thing to do. But don't be afraid to talk to somebody. We're not going to just follow you, chase you. I mean, we've got better things to do. Trust me, we're busy with our own people, but we all want to meet new people, and we want to help serve the ones that are out there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that. Well, just to wrap us all up, thank you all as panel members. Thank you all for investing the time that you invested into this event, and also the time you invested outside of this, especially with Jordan as she worked to prepare the report. Just closing remarks for us from a journey standpoint. You notice this was Journey Light because it's not about us, but of course, I'd like to just share a little bit about what we do. We are at a core a business coaching company. We like to say 90% coaching, 10% consulting. And the reason why peer advisory is so important for us is we recognize it's part of that broader ecosystem of what it takes for a business to be successful. And generally, we find that most of the clients we work with are either in a peer advisory group already, or they're considering being part of a peer advisory group. And oftentimes, if we're talking with somebody who's not currently part of a peer advisory group and they're wrestling with whether to work with us or not, one of our first suggestions might be to check out a peer advisory group. So thank you all for joining. If anybody has any questions for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, direct message me. I'm happy to point you back to any one of these panel members or anybody else in my network that might be able to point you in the right direction from a peer advisory standpoint. Thank you all again, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.